you, ma'am. Ashish's act is a very tough act to follow, but I shall try. Um, I I consider myself blessed because there are only certain periods in time that HR professionals get to recreate the template that has been set. And black swan moments like COVID actually is one of those moments, right? Where Dave Ulrich himself went back and looked at his overall framework of HR competencies and said, hey, we need to make certain changes here, probably add a competency around change management and adaptability. So, and I'll answer this through an example because incidentally I joined a company just before COVID hit, and the 3 years that I spent there was during the COVID period and afterwards, right? Please treat this as a case study. Do not ascribe whether the organization took a good decision or not, right? So I was with this XYZ organization just before COVID, a very office-driven company because it's a tech company building for the globe, planning to go IPO, collaboration is important, zero work from home, zero remote work, which is very different to what I had experienced earlier in other tech companies like Uber, Microsoft or LinkedIn. I was like, great, this is how you build software from scratch for the world, which is going to solve the problem of testing. COVID hit in March and we were all forced to go remote, right? And work had to still go on. And that's where I experienced when people keep talking about how do you change the engine of an aircraft while the aircraft is still flying. That's what we were doing, right? Because you can't stop work. You need to find new ways of doing work and do it effectively. But you also need to tweak your policies and frameworks to enable that new work, right? So onboarding had to happen remote. We didn't have any recorded videos, etc. All of that had to be recorded, etc. So huge change management around every process, onboarding. How do people get laptops, right? So the IT department per se became more of a supply chain program management department because they had to ensure laptops are available to people wherever they're joining from. COVID containment zones, etc. So the competencies of people required in those roles changed. The way we worked changed. So whiteboards went away, right? The entire excitement of working together, huddling over the water cooler, that culture of ways of work went away, and we experienced culture only through Zoom windows. Interestingly, the company doubled during this time, which means that about 50% or more of people joined the company only remotely. And a lot of them were freshers. So this was their first job. So for them, the social aspect of work was just log into Zoom, attend calls, do your Zoom meetings, write code, log off, right? There was no mentorship. How do you really create that mentorship or sense of belonging in the organization, in the employees? First job, right? The other challenge was people who had experienced in-person work elsewhere, experienced professionals, joined us remote, and they were like, oh, there's something wrong with this company. The culture is very different. Culture is not different. You've just joined a company which is pivoted from being in-person to being remote. So again, changes there. So I think the biggest learning there was, and then when COVID went away, we said that we are going to remain remote because of a business decision that we took, talent availability, etc. Productivity was up, and we said we can still continue to build effectively by being remote. Now, it's a very different situation during COVID and post-COVID. During COVID, you're forced to work inside. You're forced to work in a situation where you don't have domestic help coming in, and you're contributing to household work. Your work-life balance goes for a toss. Post-COVID, you have a choice of going out, right? You have a choice of seeing your spouse go to office, and you're sitting at home working, right? So very, very different way of managing that workforce, and how do you integrate that workforce into the mainstream workforce that you have. So I think all of these were three very distinct challenges, and HR professionals, I think it was a beautiful time for us to just reinvent the template, and we can talk more about it. So, before I answer the question, I'll just touch upon a concept that everyone talks about, and it's very linked to wellness.
Yeah, please.
Work-life balance. How many of you have heard of that? Yeah, perfect. So I think my thought process, and I think my previous organizations and current organizations' thought process is that it's not necessarily work-life balance anymore. It's more of work-life choice and the choices that you want to make. How you want to work, where you want to work from, what sort of work you want to do, what sort of responsibilities you want to take, and what sort of career velocity you want to have. There is space for everyone in the organization, and I think that's what we did really well at BrowserStack, my previous organization, that if you want an accelerated career, we'll give you that, but be cognizant that with that there'll be extra work. You will have to take on additional responsibilities, and hence, because you have only 24 hours, your personal life can take a backseat. However, if you want to prioritize your personal life, you can still do that, continue to do your current work, and obviously your growth trajectory is going to be not as fast as otherwise. And that is a very clear conversation that is had between the manager and the employee, and people are very clear about how they want to approach it. This matter of choice, while it's always been there, I think COVID has brought about that a little bit more, because now people have experienced that there is a different way of working possible. And we wanted to then extend the same choice in our policies as well. So we said that, hey, if we are going to go remote as a company, and we probably were the first to announce in India, an India headquartered company, that we are going completely remote without a clawback of coming back. So we said that policies need to reflect that, right? So one, remote means that, hey, productivity will be high, people will be engaged, etc. So how do we track that, and what metrics are we going to look at? So absenteeism could be one metric, number of leaves that someone's taking, how many times people are falling sick, etc. And then productivity in a tech world is slightly easy to evaluate, because you're looking at number of lines of quality code shipped, right, and how quickly you're going to market with products and so on. So those are the metrics that we kept as a North Star, and then from there we started building our policy. So one was unlimited leave. We said that we'll trust our employees, and we'll not monitor how many leaves they take. They just need to inform the manager, and they need to have a contingency plan in place, like who is going to cover for them during that period. But yeah, it was not capped. So not 20 days, not 30 days. I know of people who've taken 60 days leave at a stretch, and no one's really questioned. As long as work doesn't suffer, you're able to allocate work to people, and so on. So that was one. Also, because we went remote, some of our policies around enabling a home office became important. So we again said that we'll lead with choice. So either people could go to a WeWork and reimburse that amount post-COVID, or during COVID we said we'll help them set up their home office, right? Now, a large percentage of our population was based in Bombay, and that was a little bit of a challenge, because Bombay, again, real estate space is limited. You cannot necessarily have tables, chairs, etc. set up just as easily that you would probably do in Hyderabad, for that matter. So then we actually had personalized carpenter services being put up, so that customizations around what size desks, etc. can be done. So I think that we did. Otherwise, fairly standard policies around insurance, etc. But what was really important, I think, for students coming in is to know that you have a choice, right? I firmly believe that, and Ashish is right, everyone leaves their manager, and I firmly believe that everyone has the right to have a terrific manager, right? You should, and as you grow into a managerial role, you should remember that your employees, your reportees also have that same right, so that remains your guiding light. But yeah, you always have a choice. If every organization is not made for everyone, and there is this concept of self-select or select out, which our organization very clearly called out in our job descriptions, etc., that we are a very hard-working and hard-playing organization, and you need to be tuned a certain way to be able to be successful here. It doesn't mean that you're a bad employee. You may be great in some other organization, right? So I think recognizing that you have a choice and every organization is not meant for you, I think that is going to help decide uh, what makes you happy. And at the end of it, it's a slightly more nebulous sort of construct, but that's what we are chasing, isn't it? Everything else is a means to get there. So yeah, as long as you figure what makes you happy, you should be good. Personalization. I'll just quickly add a caveat there. I was talking at SHRM yesterday. We were talking about deep learning and neural networks, and I think what will happen with technology, and as we continue to use technology, uh, as humans, we have a very, very important role here, right? Because we are the ones who are writing the algorithm, training the algorithm, making the algorithm take decisions, and then retraining basis wrong decisions or correct decisions and reinforcement, right? Um, why is it important? It is important because an algorithm cannot take a moral decision, right?
True.
So you have these bots like Amber, which are like active listening agents. They would reach out to your employees through a survey. It's a bot. You can talk to her. She will be empathetic. She'll be like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that this happened." Very human-like characters. But can she actually provide a solution? She cannot. Now, if the algorithm is tweaked in terms of being able to provide a solution, it can cause havoc because it will be based on very, very cognitive reasoning, right? The emotional piece is out because, like, machines don't have sentience yet till singularity hits. So, I think that's very important, and that's a very important role that we as HR professionals or people, humankind in general, need to be aware of when we use technology. We are celebrating ChatGPT, but along with that, the sort of data that we are feeding into ChatGPT can be hugely detrimental for us. Similarly, Google search or Bing search and so on. Secondly, I think DNI, and I'll probably touch upon it, and Ashish, you catch up on it.
Yeah.
Why is DNI important? I think every organization needs to answer that because most organizations fall into this trap of benchmarking and say that, hey, because people are doing it, we need to have X percentage representation. You don't. I'll give you an example. My previous organization, right, BrowserStack, it catered to developers, right, the development community. Now, what is the percentage of women in the development community? Negligible, right?
True.
And that's a bigger problem. Why is it not there, etc. But we as a company, why should we run a DNI initiative to increase more women participation in our workforce? DNI is a business requirement, right? You need to reflect the user base that you're building products for. Now, if your user base is all male, you would not necessarily have that representation. Yes, you'll still hire women because they would come through the interview process through an organic manner, but you would not have initiatives to cosmetically add women in the workforce in different layers in the organization. I think that's doing more disservice to the gender than service, because then there's this perception that there's a quota, etc., which I think is absolutely right. As a talent acquisition professional, I won't say it's easy, it's relatively easy for me to get in more gender diverse talent or diverse talent into the organization. But how we integrate them within the organization, how the organization works together to make them successful is what's going to make it sustainable, right? So I think any DEI effort needs to start with I. We need to get and this is what I have a discussion with all CEOs that I worked with. One, why do you need DEI? Is it just because everyone else is doing it? You need to have a clear business case. If you have a business case, do you have the right maturity among your leaders and managers and workforce to integrate people successfully into the workforce? If yes, I'll get you people. What we used to do at LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn was a fairly young organization with leaders being fairly senior, and we wanted to build more digital savviness among leaders. So there was this reverse mentoring cycle that we used to run, fairly successful. So I have actually reverse mentored the APAC head of HR of LinkedIn, successfully, unsuccessfully, I don't know, but yeah, she's still there with the company. So hopefully successfully. So it's worked really well because it gives the person who is mentoring gets that face time with a leader, and the leader learns something new, right? So